Well, this brings us on to our next segment of the podcast, our analysis section. And it's fantastic to welcome an old guest back to the podcast. I don't mean our guest is old, I just mean he's been on the podcast before. It's fantastic to welcome Andrew Blyth back.
Hi, Matthew. I'm glad that you qualified that statement there. I'm not as old as some of your reviewers, notably Bandmaster Evans, but it's good to be back and really pleased that we're going to be looking at Wonder Beholding.
Now, you've chosen this piece to look at. So my first question would be, why have you chosen this piece?
Well, that's a good question. We used to play a lot of these selections, these kind of musical sermons in the evening meetings. So there was In Quiet Pastures by Ray Stedman Allen, The Light of the World. Wonder Beholding was one of those that we used to play on a Sunday evening. It's so beautifully constructed. As a young bandsman, I used to purely think about the music and enjoy playing it as a cornet player. It was only after a while that I understood the message.
And you said there about not always understanding originally when you played these, the message behind the music. And I guess that's the whole ethos of this podcast, is to understand the theology and the ethos behind the music. So let's do that. So talking about the piece In Wonder Beholding, first of all, could you tell us a little bit about the context of when the piece was written and perhaps why it was written?
I don't believe, certainly in the Salvation Army, that many of these pieces were written just as a piece of music. And I think when we look at it, it was written in 1965, 64, but published in 66. From a Captain Leslie Condon, who was becoming very established in the staff band. I think he may have been national bandmaster at that point or at Music Editorial. And here is a man, if you read in the analysis of what he actually, it's his words, who talks about becoming jaded, becoming tired. I've often thought that there is a sense of humanness and fragility in Leslie's music.
I'd like to just share those words from the analysis written by the composer himself. Familiarity with the tenets and propagation of the faith can bring its own disadvantages. Even some of the pillars of the church have confessed to being so busy in the affairs of building God's kingdom that the sense of wonder of the very truths they faithfully declare is in danger of becoming jaded. This music seeks to join the psalmist in quiet reflection as he says, "When I consider the wonder of God's love to man being the subject of contemplation."
Perhaps he is talking about himself there, becoming jaded. There's nothing wrong with that. We all face that. I think this piece is very much an outpouring of his doubt, but then ultimately his love for Christ.
So let's dip into the score and look through the music. For those listening at home, you may find it useful, as ever, to follow along with the score, which is available on the Salvation Army Music Index. So first of all, we start off with the introduction marked Andante con Express.
Les uses the tune of Cardiff with this, but what he does is he puts it in the minor. And so the minor makes it all very, where we sing it very positively, usually as Salvationists, this asks the question, because the chromaticism in the euphonium, if you look at it there, gives us a sense of, crikey, this is not settled. This is not settled. So if you hear these first 4 bars, you get a sense of, what is this about? And can it be? The opening statement from the horns. And then to see the cornet in the second bar. What Les does beautifully there is take the tune. So be bum ba bum ba be da 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 dee. But then he develops the tune and inverts the tune around. So it leaves you with a sense of confusion. and you're thinking, I can't get my head around this. So within the first 5 bars, Les is not giving us any assurance at all. We're wondering how Christ could die for us. It's one of these pieces that plunges us into that question. First of all, it doesn't give us any real assurance to begin with. Then we get this kind of imperfect cadence, this la dum 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 questions all the time. The trombones at bar 6 bring us into the first subject, which is can you wonder? Can you wonder? So this whole section up to A is beautifully set up in the minor. The tonality is insecure, but just really doubting. So the introduction for me is beautiful because it gets where Les is at the beginning. I can't understand why God would want to love me. Why am I part of God's plan? So with 8 bars, that's what we get.
And I guess like any good piece of prose, it starts off with that question, drawing you in, wanting you more. So that takes us into section A, where we hear for the first time in the solo euphonium the tune Can You Wonder?
This song, Can You Wonder Why I Love Him So, was written by Bandmaster Weber of Boscombe. Now, he, I would believe, would have just sung this as his testimony and made the tune up. Richard Slater arranged it, as he had to do for a lot of times, because the general or the chief or whoever was commissioners at those times would go around these calls, listen to these people sing, and Slater used to have to go and visit them if they were good songs and write it all down. I mean, Slater was a real go-to guy for all this stuff. And Slater has arranged this song, in the musical Salvationists back then in the 1890s. And Les would have heard this. People would have sung this in the afternoon. Probably Les Condon would have sung it during an afternoon festival. The chorus, which is the main fragment that Les picks up. Can you wonder? Can you wonder? Can you wonder why it is I love him so? When I think of what he's done for me, the guilty one, can you wonder why it is I love him so? So, from this doubt, you're going in at section A with this song about why does this God love me? I just don't get it. In the chorus at B, he uses these figures that go up in thirds and then fall down beautifully in the horns and the euphoniums, and a chromaticism as well. So he develops harmonically the chorus a little bit, enjoys himself there.
And that takes us into letter C. A couple of bars before C, we have a key change from the cornets playing B flat major. We then go into E flat major, and that introduces our second tune, He Loved Me, I Cannot Tell Why. Once again, would you be able to tell us a little bit about this tune and how it's treated through letter C?
Yeah. Just to say 4 bars before C, can you wonder why it is I love him so? And then he draws the melodic line out in the solo cornet. Okay, so he draws that statement out. Can you wonder why it is I love him so? And develops the phrase in the cornet so beautifully, as though to say, oh wow, I can't get my head around it, to lead us into this. He loved me, I cannot tell why, which is found in section C. Again, Les, first of all, pretty solid harmony in terms that he doesn't muck around with the old song, which was written by a gentleman called Blind Mark. Okay, words and music by Blind Mark. They said it as they saw it back then. And Blind Mark was an evangelist who toured around with William Booth. Yes, Matthew, are you
So
going
I'm
to?
just trying to work out Blind Mark. Was he visually impaired, or did he come around people's houses stalling in Venetians or other types of blinds? Which type of blind are we talking about?
The former, visually impaired, yes.
Okay, just wanted to make sure.
Although that would have been a fantastic story, wouldn't it? So Les uses the chorus, and as you would imagine with this, the evangelistic nature, the simplicity back then in those days of preaching to many uneducated people at the time. So the chorus is not theologically strong in terms of having to think about it. It just says, he loved me, I cannot tell why. He loved me, I cannot tell why. On Calvary's tree, he suffered for me. He loved me, I cannot tell why. And that's simply what the chorus is there. It's again saying, I don't get it. I really don't get it. But Les kind of treats this as it is. It is a very simple statement. It's only at 4 bars before section D that he gives this very kind of jolting harmony. If you hear it at 4 bars before section D, where this kind of, I cannot tell why. You get a bit annoyed with yourself, and here Les is kind of going, why? I don't get it. In my small brain, why does the God of the universe love me? And so there's this little tension from Les here. It's kind of, please let us know the answers to all the questions to life before he goes into a kind of release again into the new key, concert F at section D, letting the trombones, who are boisterous in their very nature anyway, so he gives the trombones, those boisterous trombones and the euphonium, the tune, which is a lovely kind of release and actually a reflection of the composer Blind Mark Saunders, who was by nature a joyous evangelist. So they say in the history books.
You don't remember it then?
No.
So that takes us through into section E, where we have our third tune in this selection, I Think of All His Sorrow.
Okay, well, before we go into the song, we've got to just look at 2 bars before E, where Les cleverly inverts and uses the tune Cardiff again with the phrase that thou, my God, should die for me. La dee da 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 dee da. And here in the solo cornet, you'll see, and soprano. That's a derivative of the tune Cardiff, and that thou, my God, should die for me. So Les leads that phrase and that derivative of the phrase subtly into a song which talks about Christ's suffering, Christ's death on the cross. And this was a song written by Richard Slater in 1892. Slater was a man who had huge doubts in his faith and his life, and went away from faith as a young man and studied various other forms of different ideas. Came back through the Salvation Army, obviously, and became the father of Salvation Army music. And without Slater, you and I probably wouldn't be talking, Matthew. So this song, which again Les uses the main chorus for, really, is quite important in terms of recognizing that people like Slater had doubts as well. So to people like Les Condon, that was a big thing, just as it is a big thing to know that Les Condon also had doubts. It's a big assurance for us all to recognize these pillars, as Les says right at the beginning, of the church, can often become jaded. I think that was his words. And so you go back to the crux of the Christian story, in a sense, the crucifixion and resurrection. And here, Les in the lower brass with the mellows, the horns, leading the melody here, and the baritones and euphonium with basses, bringing us a very somber reflection on this song by Richard Slater, which the words say, "I think of all his sorrow, the garden and the morrow, when cruel death did follow. 'Twas for me, it was for me." And there we get this, "it was for me," this declamation in the first trombones and the horns, 2 bars before F, but this little chorus of Slater's there, speaking about, it was for me that he died, the crux of the Christian gospel, which is very somberly set here by Les in the lower brass, suddenly rises 2 bars into F with the full band bringing us into this, "It was for me, Christ died for me." And if we get that as Christians, if we understand the crucifixion, believe in it, believe that a man died and he was the Son of God, if we get that in our own hearts and minds, we can then start to recognize that the God of the universe loves and cares for us instead of doubting that. Okay, so that's where Les is leading us into this next section.
And so this next section of F that you're talking about, we have a few more hints towards that tune, Cardiff, and Can It Be, which leads us into the first full iteration of it at letter G. But how does Leslie Condon introduce this tune throughout F?
Well, he does it so beautifully because he builds this up. So, again, we go into this minor feel and this chromaticism in the euphonium. It's this kind of awakening of, as I say, recognizing the sacrifice and then building up to it. So at F there, we've got this very quiet reflection. All of us have to have that understanding, and that understanding can come to us very quickly, but we need to have those quiet times of recognizing that. We all need that, and Les gives us that. You'll notice 8 bars before G, this beautiful moment, he uses poco rit here. I get the feeling here, you get a sense just in these 2 bars where God says, "I'm here for you." Do you get it now? And the key just settles. And it's just God saying, "Do you know, I've got it. You're okay. I'm here." And at that point, that's where the music flips, because then you're excited by that. You kind of understand, you get a glimpse of what is happening. And this is where Les then starts to ramp it up. We build this that I should gain motif, la da 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 da, that I should gain, that I should gain, that I should gain. He used that la da 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 dee da da dee da 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 dee da da da, that I should gain. Wow, that I'm going to gain this. Unbelievable. Then we get to G. So we've got this kind of reflection, understanding that Christ has died for us, this reaffirming of Christ's love for us in 8 bars before G, just for 2 bars, and then understanding, hearing, and moving on into the word that says amazing love at section G. beautifully set up. The key is wonderfully solid there. It open, and I think for me, this is one of the most moving moments of Salvation Army literature, musical literature, because anyone that goes through that journey, as we all do, if I was playing that in the band or conducting that in the band, I don't fail. I know I'm getting soppy and all that kind of thing, but I don't fail to have a tear in my eye. The problem you've got as a conductor is keeping the reins on that. If everyone really believes that, it's keeping a musical, because you could really just go for that and think, oh man, you know, Les Condon for me. I know we've done Easter Glory before, but the more I look at Leslie's music, the more I marvel in it. And you just have this glorious open full band playing that through in section G, which is just beautiful. 2 bars before the key change, which is 4 bars before H. Do you notice what he does again? He elongates the phrase. Shouldst die for me, shouldst die for me. So he uses the same device again as he did previously, can you wonder? But enjoys it at this point in just the horns and baritones, and for me it's just beautiful. Goosebumps talking about it now.
Absolutely, a wonderful, glorious climax, and without any gimmicks as well, just the pure music and the words associated to it achieving that effect.
Yeah.
So that takes us into letter H, where we see our 5th and final tune of the selection, and that tune is a Wonderful, Wonderful Jesus. Could you talk us through this tune here again, and just how the piece is drawn to a close after all that excitement and motion, the way it just peacefully fades away?
Again, this is really a Salvation Army song. We would have sung this a lot. Again, he only uses the chorus, but it's by a guy called Ernest Sellers. And the words are wonderful, wonderful Jesus. In the heart he implanted a song of deliverance, of courage, of strength. In the heart he implanted a song. And what Les is saying here is, thank you. You've given me my life. You've given me the gift. You've given me the courage to believe in that gift. So thank you for that. And what you get is it just winds down. It's a prayer. He uses with devotion, con devotione, and this really, with the beautiful harmony that Les gives here, he kind of plays around. You could probably see him at the piano here, and he enjoys himself here, but not in an overindulgent way. If you get the colours right as a bandmaster for this, it really is just beautifully and subtle. And section I, all he does is just finish it up. He just gives a little fragment and develops the final bit there and just brings it down. Just beautiful. Meno mosso, a little bit slower, but thank you. It's kind of like thank you at the end there. Thank you for believing in me as a human being and using me as a tool for your ministry, God. And that's what makes him wonderful and hold him, for me, just absolutely beautiful.
Absolutely. And thank you ever so much for helping us to unlock that in the music. I'm sure there are probably those that might just think it's 5 tunes slung together, but actually with your words really enlightening us into that testimony and those words of encouragement really through the music. So thank you ever so much, Andrew, for your time.
Thank you, Matthew.